before we jumped on here, we were on the other side talking about Coach Bill Callahan's individual.
Yes.
And Taylor was asking Coach Brian. Did I call you Coach Brian? Or did they call you Coach Callahan?
Coach
like
Callahan?
how did they
BC?
You want to know what most of them call? Most of them call me Callie.
Callie?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's got a little extra English on it. I like that. That is nice.
Well, it's what most people have called me most of my coaching career.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And but yeah, Coach works, Callie works.
All right, well, Taylor,
Brian's weird. People don't call me Brian very often. That's a weird one for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Callie it is then.
Yeah.
Mr.
Taylor was
Callie.
talking to Callie about the individual of Coach Brian Callahan, and I was like, oh, yeah. Sometimes in our individual linebacker drills in Washington, I'd be like, all right, water break, and then we'd be like, let's go watch the Hogs' Indian. We just stand across the field and watch them, and they'd just be dying.
The whole time.
It's so funny, bro.
God.
Coach Callahan's a grinder. He gets it out of you.
Coach Bill Callahan.
Yeah, Coach Bill Callahan.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, whatever time frames that you get, with any constraints, you're juicing as much, all the seconds, you're getting it out of the boys.
Mhm. Has he been like that always? As long as you can remember?
Always, yeah, always. He's always been full tilt all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you get, that's how guys get better. Like we were watching yesterday, I think they might have done 40 or 50 different pass sets. And they film every one of them, and he cuts every one of them up to each guy. So you could watch all your reps for the whole day and see how you progressed during the day and got better. But yeah, it's every usable second he uses. It doesn't ever stop.
What's his philosophy on pass sets? Because a lot of coaches come in, they're like, we do it one way and one way only. Does he let the boys do what they want?
He coaches the technique that he's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of variance in the set angles. If you're jump setting versus we call it a Congo set versus an angle set, there's all kinds of variation that they use all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And there is some that's one of the things that I think he does great is he's able to have a conversation with a guy maybe that's played 10 years and say, well, how have you done it? And find ways to work with them on what fits, as long as they're still getting the job done.
Yeah.
He's open to listening to guys talk, but he's got a very particular way about how he coaches it.
Dude, that's so awesome how the old dogs
Yeah.
are willing to still learn and do all that. Because you get some of those old school cats, they'll come in and be like, you do it this way and this way only. One guy, have you ever met Russ Grimm?
I have not met him. I know him, but
Okay.
I can't say that I know him well.
I was with Russ for 2 years. Greatest offensive line coach I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah.
And he comes in the first meeting and he's like, talk to me about stutter. I don't know if you guys have stutter.
Yeah.
Open side pull scheme. And I'm like, okay, if it's a 3 technique, you deuce to the mic. And if not, then you're this. He's like, whoa. Deuce or through the mic. That's it. I was like, all right, what step? He's like, just get to the mic or do the deuce. And he just like, instead of having to over explain every small detail, he was like, just know what your job is and go get that done the best way you can possibly do it.
Yep.
And I'll help you along the way. And he was
Keep it simple.
huge for my career. Yeah. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
And there's
Kiss
something to
method.
that.
Yeah.
There's something
like
to that. I think the cool thing for a guy like old coaches, and my dad's not that old, I guess, but
He's kind of
old enough. He's older.
Yeah. He's an old gentleman.
And what's been super impressive about him is his ability to go from like being that old, like the old school
Mm-hmm.
style of coaching, and he's really adapted how he approaches today's players. It's different now even than when you guys played coming in. You think about 10 years ago, how much different the generation is, and his ability to relate to those guys and still connect with them, and coaches them hard as hell, but they all know that he cares about them.
Yeah.
Knowing that you've seen him kind of adapt and develop with those times,
Yeah.
is there anything that you've asked him on, like, noticing that difference and him understanding that he has changed?
Yeah, I think there's a I think one of the things that jumped out was, they drafted DeJuan James last year in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And it was he's just very different than the guys that he's been on. And a long time ago, he might have coached DeJuan a very different way. And ultimately it might not have worked very well. And just to see him adapt and know that maybe the way that I'm approaching this, DeJuan's not going to respond to me yelling and screaming and getting in his face. It's positive and encouraging and trying to point out that these are the things that can help you. And if you want to make a lot of money, here's how you do it.
Right.
And he knows how to appeal to guys
Their
a lot of
motivations.
different ways. He knows the motivations. I think, he's a master coach. He's got every way to relate that you can relate in the book. And I ask him all the time, like, well, what made you do that? Why'd you do that in this case and not that case? And it's because he knows the player and he knows how to make it work.
When you get this job at the Tennessee Titans and you call your old man, say, I want you to be the O-line coach for my ball club.
Sure.
How did that all go down?
It was cool. The backstory is I interviewed for 2 jobs the year before that had gone a ways down the road. I felt like I was in the mix, and I'd had a conversation with him, and I said, do we want to do this? I've never worked for my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I never worked for him at any point. There had been some chances where we might have connected on staff together, just never worked out. So I've never spent any time with him in the coaching profession. And so I asked him this question a year ago, and he was like, "No, I don't think I want to do that."
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about.
I'm trying to picture his voice too. He's
Yeah.
so funny.
But you think about, there's a lot that goes into a father and son working together. And this is the first time that I think a son has ever hired their father in a substantial role like that. It's like Kyle Shanahan, Mike's always been around, but he never hired him in an official, like it wasn't like Mike Shanahan was Kyle's coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
So it's kind of a really unique setup. And so, we had to work through all those things. Like my dad's like, I'm not for everybody. What if you don't like the way I coach? You know what I mean? And you have to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And so we did. And ultimately he was like, I just think I really like Cleveland. I like Kevin Stefanski, and I'm happy here. I like the guys in the room. I don't really want to leave. I understand. And so I kind of just assumed that was going to be the case as this process went along. And so as I interviewed, everybody asked like, well, is your dad coming with you? I'm like, no, he's not. I mean, we had the conversation. It's probably not going to happen. And I didn't think it would. And all of a sudden I get the job, and I call him and tell him I got it. And he calls the next day, and he's like, let me think about some things, and I'll call you back.
Hold on.
I was like, okay.
You call him, say, I got the
Bill's
job for the
negotiating
Titans.
at this
And
No,
then
I mean, that initial conversation was like absolutely thrilled. We didn't have it in that moment.
Yeah. But you guys have a conversation. Hey, I got the job. I'm proud of you, son. Tears in both of your guys'
Sure,
eyes.
absolutely.
The next day he calls you, and without any context goes, let me think about coming to help you out.
Yeah.
I love that.
It was.
That is awesome.
And I think it just became much more real for him in that moment. And I think had it been the year prior, I think the answer still would have been no. But having it happen in real time, and him going, man, this is what a unique opportunity to go try to help my son succeed. And I think I'd want to be a part of that. And so as I'll go have my press conference, and we were kind of talking back and forth. And after the press conference, he was like, I want to do this. We need to do this. It'll be really pretty fun. And it's been maybe the coolest experience of my coaching career is to be able to go to work with my dad every day. It's been pretty sweet.
Dude, you had an incredible presser when you were talking about coaching with your dad. There's a lot of perspective, a lot of just you can tell when you say that, you genuinely mean it.
Oh yeah.
Was there a reason that you guys were never on the same staff? Is there something about say maybe yourself where it's like, hey, I don't want to be known this way, or I don't want to feel like I get any handouts from somebody who's already been there, done that? Yeah,
all of that's true. One of the things I had finished, my dad was at Nebraska at the time. I was just finishing my playing career, and he goes, he said, look, you can come to Nebraska and you can be a GA here for me. If you want to do that, I have a spot, you can come do that. He goes, but what I would recommend to you is you've been at UCLA for 4 years. You know the people there, you know the place. They have also said, we'd love to have you in this role if you want to come when you graduate and be a GA here at UCLA. And my dad was like, I really think you should stay at UCLA. And in that moment, I was like, damn, Dad. But the best advice he had ever given me was, he goes, make your own way. Mm-hmm. He goes, you're already going to get all these, all the nepotism and all the stuff that goes around coaching, where it's like, he goes, but I didn't give you your first job. And he goes, that will matter at some point for you. And I want you to make your own way and make your own connections and meet your own people that can help you, as opposed to me being the one to do it. And I think that was the best advice he could have given me. And it probably was the best thing that happened to me, was not going to work for my dad and staying where I was.
At any point, were you guys close to working together in the past?
No, nothing that came up. When we first got to Cincinnati, there was there was a chance that maybe it could have worked out, but it's Zach's first job, and he wants to hire the people that he wanted to hire, and it never got. It was never more than a curiosity, oh, I wonder if that would work. Mm-hmm. And it just he was still in Washington at the time, and he was again happy where he's at. He's got a good line there. It was no big deal. So it never went any further than a curiosity. But we've never been really close at any point to working together, which is kind of crazy to think.